All right, welcome back to the channel. I am Sherman Rivers and wanted to take a moment to share something with you that conversation that I had with a young man recently. Just one of the points that was made in that conversation was about motivation to change. Um, to move forward in life or to pursue a particular goal, um, basically based on changing your circumstances. And one of the things that came up in the conversation was a video, one that I had seen in the past, actually more than once, by E.T. E.T. the hip hop preacher. I'm not sure if you know who that is, but you can always look him up. There's a lot of content from him on the internet. But anyhow, this particular piece of content was about how you have to want something as bad as you want to breathe. That's when change takes place. That's when you take the actions that are necessary to achieve a particular goal. And it was interesting because that is a very potent message, very powerful, very powerful. But there's more to it than that. This is something that I have learned over time through my experiences and experiences of others about real change, not momentary change, not temporary change, but real change. And although it's a very, very salient point about wanting something as bad as you want to breathe, as bad as you need oxygen, it's a great catalyst for the beginning of change. Now, granted, I support that message. Um, I like that message. Again, very powerful message. But what I was explaining in this conversation is that wanting something as bad as you want to breathe, in that example, there's a guy whose head's pushed under the water and he wants to breathe so bad. That feeling, not having oxygen, that panic that comes over you, that that desire to extricate yourself from that position, super powerful. But what happens when you do breathe? What happens when you catch your breath? That's what I'm talking about. An example, say a financial change, changing your financial situation, something bad happened. You ended up in a bad spot financially. This is just an example, but um, in order to change that, you could say you got to want to change it as bad as you want to breathe. You got to be willing to do whatever it takes to fix it, right? So if I were to hand you a check, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever you needed to fix that problem, would you really change? Would there be any change? Um, so you panicked for a little while, but then I gave you air. You got it. What happens next? What happens then? And this is why a lot of us in life deal with the same issues, same problems over and over again, because we have a desire to change them when it gets so bad that we want to change it as bad as we want to breathe. But as soon as we get that little bit of oxygen, as soon as we catch our breath, the sense of urgency is gone. How do you create that when it's no longer that urgent? I have air. I can breathe. And that is what happens when people set long-term goals. They have this change that they want to see in their life. They want to make it permanent. But the problem is you get satisfied and you get comfortable because you have what you need in the moment. That's that air. You can breathe. And now that you can breathe, there's no longer a sense of urgency, and your path towards that permanent change is done. It wasn't that breath that was so important as much as it is to keep breathing, right? What about the next breath? and the next breaths? What about next year? See, it's hard to imagine that because we don't see the air around us. We don't even think about it. For the most part, we don't even think about breathing until we can. And then once we're able to breathe again, it goes back to the back of our mind. It's a subconscious thing. Our body's taking care of it, bringing in air, heart pumping, blood moving. We don't even think about that stuff. But you have to, in my opinion, want it as bad as you want to keep breathing, where you want to make sure that you have what you need going forward. You don't want that situation to ever happen again. You don't want to find yourself in a spot where you can't breathe and you're struggling, you're panicking ever again. That's the mindset that has to be adopted in order to make those permanent changes. If not, you may find yourself struggling to breathe over and over and over again because you haven't taken the steps necessary to make sure that that's not the case again, or to minimize that possibility as much as possible. So it requires long-term planning and long-term action, not just a flurry of action to change the space or the immediate situation, but to keep taking action for the long term to make sure that situation doesn't arise again. Hope that makes sense. So in short, it's not enough to just want it as bad as you want to breathe. You got to want it as bad as you want to keep breathing. And that's a whole different mindset, totally different mindset. It becomes less of a visceral thing and more of a mental thing. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I am Sherman Rivers. Thanks for stopping by. Peace.